What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the BnG podcast, episode 121. And to give you a timestamp as I do for all of my episodes, today is Monday, May 13th, 2024, and we're 2 days away. We're 2 days away from the NFL dropping their official schedule release on NFL Network on Wednesday night. So I decided to do a fun episode for you guys. Decided to have a little fun with this episode. But before we get too deep into this episode, be sure to comment, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, especially if you're checking us out on YouTube. Let's get those interactions up. On the road to 2,000 followers, and I cannot do it with you guys. So guess what? If you love this episode, while you're watching it, while you're typing us up, and while you're chatting us up over here in the comment section, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, be sure to become a member of the BnG Mafia as well. I got some exciting perks coming to my channel members. My channel members. We got merchandise coming with the season getting closer and closer. You know, they spoil me over here as a season ticket holder with a lot of merch that I tend to give away. So go ahead and hit that membership button, and that merchandise and that other, memorabilia items can be yours. But without further ado, let's get into this episode. As I said, I wanted to have a little fun with this episode, and today we're going to be giving you our BnG Commanders 2024 mock schedule. And I know this is something that a couple of members in the media do. Shout out to my man, Kevin Shin. He was the one that I've been listening to him on the radio forever. He's been doing it since as long as I can remember. And I know a couple of other people in the media have picked up on this as well. But I promise you, I didn't use any of their influence. I haven't heard from any of their input on their mock schedules or anything like that. This is all independent thoughts coming from BnG. And you come to BnG for the most raw, uncut, and unfiltered analysis, and that's what we promise to give you today. As I said, Monday, May 13th, and this is the dead period where us as addict NFL fans, and yes, I'm gonna say it, admitting is the first step. We're fiending for content at this point. We're just looking for any bit of news coming out of our respective organizations that we like and things of that nature. And with that being said, the Washington Commanders concluded their rookie minicamp over the weekend, where our guy Jaden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick, was the star of the show. But we didn't feel the need to do an episode on that, guys, because as I mentioned, you come to us for the most in-depth analysis, and no shade to any of my fellow content creators that have been putting episodes for the over the course of the weekend covering the rookie minicamp. But to be honest with you guys, there just simply wasn't that much content. There just simply wasn't that much content. And trust me, we searched high, we searched low, we searched wide, and we searched far in between. And we just didn't simply see too much content to talk about. So if anybody gave you an episode talking or covering over the rookie minicamp, trust and best believe that they were jazzing it. They were jazzing it like the Utah Jazz over there. But no shade to them because I know you got to get those watch times up. But, outside of a few throws from my man Jaden Daniels, where, the ball was flying out of his hands. And, us over there, we were fiending for that content. We started to comp his release compared to Drake May's release coming out of the New England Patriots rookie minicamp, where Gerard Mayo said that, Drake May struggled. So, a lot of us, or a couple of us in the content creator community, they took some side-by-sides, and that's what we do. A lot of people, have their things to say about those type of videos. Hey, but that's what we do when we're fiending for content. So, with the schedule of release dropping in 2 days, I decided to have fun with this episode. And without further ado, let's get into this episode. So, I don't know if you guys know, but in this year, with the 17 games being played, this is the year that the NFC will be getting 9 home games and 8 away games, right? So the Commanders will be playing 9 home games, and they'll be playing 8 away games and vice versa. So they had 9 away games last year and 8 home games. That's just what the NFL does, interchanging it with the respective conferences. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this video. This is something that I've been working on for over a week. So I hope you guys, as you're listening to the schedule, let me know what you agree with. Let me know if you're excited for any potential matchups that I have in my mock schedule. Let me know your mock schedule. Drop it in the comments because I love chopping it up with you guys over there that support me over here at BnG. But without further ado, let's get into the nitty gritty of this 2024 Commanders mock schedule. Bleeding BnG style. And as I said, I've been working on this for over a week, guys. Didn't have any outside influences, but I wanted to drop this episode today because there are starting to be, not necessarily leaks because the NFL reported it itself, but there's some games that are starting to come out that we already know on the NFL schedule. For example, this morning, the NFL announced that the AFC Championship rematch will be played as the NFL opening kickoff game to start the NFL season on that Thursday night. I think that's September 5th, and it'll be a game played between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we know for the first time in many years, I think the first time since the merger, we'll be having a game on that opening Friday weekend as well, as the Philadelphia Eagles, our division rivals, face the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. So I'm excited to see that game. So those are a couple games we already know. So I wanted to get this episode out before any more games leak, and y'all be like, dude, Jalen, you're cheating. You're cheating on the test, dude, and taking credit for it. No. This is all our independent thoughts over here at Bleeding BnG. And without further ado, let's get into the nitty gritty. So I don't know if you guys know, with week one, I don't know if you guys know, but the Commanders haven't opened up on the road since the 2019 season, which was Terry McLaurin's breakout game, which was the last season under Jay Gruden. So under the Ron Rivera era, we opened up every game at home. So I think that it's bound or it's inevitable for us to open up on the road this season. So in week one, I went along on September 8th, 2024 at 1 o'clock. I went along and gave us an away game in the Superdome in New Orleans against the New Orleans Saints. And the reason that I did that is because, guys, you know the NFL loves their storylines. And I'm not saying that I'm a script writer. I'm not saying that I'm the modern day Steven Spielberg. But some of these storylines just simply write themselves. If you look at this game against the New Orleans Saints, you get RG3's debut reincarnated. Now, I don't think that, Jaden Daniels and RG3 are necessarily close comps as a player. But, I mean, you got two African-American mobile quarterbacks that are in pretty similar situations, being the number 2 overall pick, and are, being put in position to hopefully lead a down and battered franchise to reclaim glory. And that's a situation that both RG3 was in, and that Jaden Daniels is going to be in come September, if he's the starter, which I expect him to be. So this can be RG3's debut reincarnated, where he opened up in the Superdome against the New Orleans Saints. And we know how that game went with the 80-yard crosser to Pierre Garçon. And we were off. And we were off for the 2012 season, the most exciting season in modern times, even though we went 10-6, which wasn't an amazing record. But that's the most successful season in my lifetime as a Redskin fan, football team fan, Commander fan, whatever you want to call us. Including the 2005 season as well, where I think we went 10-6 as well. Getting back to the game, RG3's debut reincarnated, Jaden Daniels returned to Louisiana, which I think is a sneaky storyline with him being the reigning Heisman winner out of Louisiana State University, LSU. He gets to go home, and I got another storyline for you. And I don't know if this is going to come to fruition because I know that he just underwent neck surgery. So I don't know if he'll be available for week one. But our last number 2 overall pick just so happens to play for the New Orleans Saints now in the old school Predator, Chase Young. So that's another storyline that we can tie in. Washington's, battered and bruised old former number 2 pick in Chase Young, battling and chasing the pass rusher, and their reclaimed number 2 pick in Jaden Daniels, trying to impact the game and impact our future. Our past is pursuing and, in a literal sense, chasing after our future number 2 overall pick. So there's a lot of parallels there. Chase versus Washington, Jaden returning to LSU, RG3's debut reincarnated. And like I said, the NFL loves their storylines, and I think that this is something that somebody in the league office, these are 3 points that is definitely popped into their head as they're coming up with this schedule. Unless they're just using ChatGPT, where, they don't really care about emotions. But yeah, week one, at the New Orleans Saints, opening up on the road, moving into week 2. In week 2, I have us playing our first primetime game. And this is a 7:15 Monday night game on September 16th against the Chicago Bears. Now I know that we're not accustomed to primetime games as a modern, Washington football team franchise fan. But I think that this is a game that you're going to advertise. And if you guys can remember, or this is the game that you can advertise. If you guys can remember, in week 2 last year was the week that the ESPN did the doubleheader. I believe it was the Browns and the Steelers and the Panthers and the Saints. So it was 2 division games. I think they're going to get away from the division games, but they had the NFL doubleheader. And I think that first game took place at 7:15. And I think that's the slot that I'm going to place Washington in for week 2, going up against the number 1 overall pick and the hometown hero in Caleb Williams. And those are a couple of storylines. You got number 2 versus number 1, Jaden versus Caleb. Caleb returning home to D.C., in a quarterback showdown that you can advertise with the 2 reigning Heisman winners, the 2022 winner and the 2023 winner, going up against each other. That's why I think that this game is very marketable, especially on ESPN, where we know that among the big time networks that get the primetime slated games, the ESPN slate is probably the worst, up there with Thursday Night Football. But this is a game that, tying into that you also might want to play early while both teams are still competitive, because I'm not delusional. Both teams could have, the rails fall off and come towards the end of the season, not necessarily be as competitive, and this game wouldn't necessarily be as marketable. So our week 2 game, the Washington Redskins, the Washington Commanders going up at home against the Chicago Bears, and Caleb Williams return to the district, to the DMV. So moving on to week 3. On Sunday, September 22nd, in the 1 o'clock slot, I have us playing away in our first divisional matchup against the New York Giants. This is our first divisional matchup. And I don't know why, but it seems like amongst the divisional matchups, we always get the New York Giants early. We always seem to get them in like September or the first week in October, the first couple of weekends in October. I know that necessarily wasn't the case this past year, but all the years prior to that, they seem to be our first divisional matchup. I can think in 2021, we played them in week 2. 2020, we played them in week 3. And I think we get back to that trend, playing them early in the year, up in New York, in another game where you can market these 2 teams, because everybody still has promise in September. No matter if you 1-1, 0-2, or 2-0, you still have some type of promise. And with these being the projected 2 worst teams in the division, I think that they want to put this game early in the season while it's still marketable, kind of like with the Chicago Bears matchup in week 2. Moving on to week 4, we have another divisional matchup with the Dallas Cowboys coming to Commanders Field, coming to Landover, Maryland, in the 4:25 Fox slot, playing the Washington Commanders at home. This is an early season matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, something that we haven't necessarily had in a while. But I think back to the 2016 season where they had that early home matchup against the Cowboys. That was one of the more lit games that I can remember in recent times, if you want to call 2016 recent. 2016 was 8 years ago. Whoa, I'm getting old. But I actually went to that game, and even between my time, I wasn't a season ticket holder yet, but even amongst my time being a season ticket holder, that was one of the more lit games that I can remember within the last 10 years, because the Cowboys were really good that year, and it was early in the season. I think we had 1 win under our belt. I think it was week 3, or it was maybe week 2. We had just lost to the Steelers, but we still had a lot of hope. We still had a lot of promise, and I think that the NFL wants those type of ratings, especially as, we try to, become a reclamation project as far as our franchise, and want to be put back into the sterling eyes of the NFL as one of those, pillar franchises, as we were and we're supposed to be, because a lot like the New York Knicks in basketball, the NFL is better when the Washington football franchise is good. So week 4 at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Moving into week 5. Moving into week 5, we get one of the smaller market teams after facing 2 divisional matchups. We play another home matchup against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, October 6th in a 1 o'clock slate. This might be like a CBS game with us playing an AFC competitor. I remember we played a game similar to this timeline in the 2022 season where Carson Wentz threw that interception on the potential game-winning drive. He threw the interception in the end zone. Not much to it. This game can be marketable on the marketability scale. You have 2 young quarterbacks. I think that Will Levis will be the Titans starting quarterback by, week 5 of the season. This is just, a smaller market team. I think the NFL is going to, put us up. And not saying that they're less physical or, any less good. But coming off the backs of, back-to-back divisional matchups, a nice AFC matchup, with also the Tennessee Titans being our first AFC matchup on the schedule. So, if you guys have been following the Washington Commanders, which you have, that's why you're on this channel, you know that we have very late buys in the last 2023 season and the 2022 season. So, I'm going to buck that trend, and I'm going to go ahead and give us one of the earliest buys possible that we can have. And we're going to go ahead and have a week 6 buy. So, we're going to go ahead and hit Cancun, hit the Dominican Republic, hit Turks, hit wherever you want to go in week 6, and we're going to come back rejuvenated for our October 20th matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals at home against the against the Cincinnati Bengals in a 1 o'clock slate. And this game is just, the most successful last 2 quarterbacks to come out of LSU, and Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow facing each other. Outside of or inside the NFL, I think that Jaden Daniels' college career had the most similar arc to Joe Burrow, going to other schools first, then transferring to LSU, and having a pretty good first year at LSU, and then skyrocketing in their second year at LSU, in their 5th year in college football. So I know they have a pretty even parallel as far as their college arcs. So it'd be interesting to see them match up against each other. So coming off of our bye, we face the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati in a 1 o'clock game, and that's an away game with our second AFC opponent coming off of the board. Now, this is where I decided to have a lot of fun. On October 27th, the weekend before Halloween. Halloween falls in the middle of the week this year, which is always the worst. But we're going to travel down the Beltway late at night. On Sunday night. And in the 8:20 slot on Sunday Night Football, we're going to be playing them Baltimore Ravens. We're going to be playing them Dirty Birds down in Baltimore. We're going to be hitting that avenue down in Baltimore, making it do what it do down in Baltimore in Week 8 matchup against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens on October 27th. There's a couple of reasons why this game is marketable and high on the watch scale, high on the marketability scale. You got 2 young, dynamic, athletic quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. The battle of the Beltway. I can remember the 2008 matchup, which we ultimately lost on Sunday Night Football with Aaron Reed, Strip Clinton Portis. Let me know if y'all OG Washington Commander fans. I told you we like an encyclopedia over here. That memory just popped up in my head. But that was one of the more prevalent memories that I can have of the Jim Zorn era, was that 2008 Sunday Night Football game. Because while we ultimately lost, that was a very physical game, going up against one of the best defenses of all time in the 2008 Baltimore Ravens. So I'm just trying to, maybe it's the nostalgia in me, and I apologize, but I told you these are all independent thoughts coming from Bleeding BnG. But I would love to have a Sunday Night Football game against the Baltimore Ravens that I can travel to. That'll probably be the one away game that I attend this year. On a Sunday night, like the battle of the Beltway, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of it. Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. I love it. We've been mentioned in the papers as, wanting to have an organization that resembles the Baltimore Ravens. And what way can we accelerate that process than by embarrassing them on national TV with our young superstar quarterback putting on a show? So week 8, Sunday Night Football, October 27th against the Baltimore Ravens. Moving into week 9, we travel back home, travel back up the road, back up the Beltway to Landover, where the Carolina Panthers will be waiting for us at a showdown at Commanders Field. Not high on the marketability rating, not high on the watch scale rating. Just a couple of talking points. This is why it'll be on the 1 p.m. window in the 1 o'clock slate. Like as I mentioned, this is a home game. The only things that I can really talk about with this game is, we got some young quarterbacks. I know a couple of people are down on Bryce Young, but, he still is a young quarterback. He still is a number 1 pick going into his second year. So you get the Bryce Young versus Jaden Daniels showdown that you got in 2022 when Alabama played LSU. And outside of that, you get, the Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu revenge game, right? There's not much to talk about with this game, so that's why we're going to go ahead and move on to week 10, where we travel across the country, going down to the desert in Arizona for a 4:05 slate. So this isn't a national televised game, but this is pushed back to the 4 o'clock slate because we're playing on the West Coast. We're playing at Arizona on Sunday, November the 10th. And this has a juicy return because this will be Cliff Kingsbury's return to the desert for the first time since his return to the NFL, being our offensive coordinator. He was previously the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals before spending some time with the USC Trojans this past season. So that'll probably be the juiciest storyline coming out of that game. But once again, there's a lot of marketability to come when you have a young dynamic quarterback like we do, because you get a showdown. You get a quarterback showdown between Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels, and who I've told you guys that, and if you guys have been following the channel, you know that my 2 comps are for Jaden Daniels are twitched up fast Deshaun Watson as far as arm talent, and tall Kyler Murray as far as like the entire package, blending the arm with the legs. I think that his closest comp is honestly for Jaden Daniels is honestly like 6'4" Kyler Murray. So that's a matchup that I would be excited to see. And I know that Cliff is going to dial it up. He's going to be in his evil mad scientist bag. He's going to try to run up the points on the Arizona Cardinals. So Jaden Daniels is going to be put in every which way position possible to ball out and have huge numbers in that matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. So moving on to week 11. We have a home showdown against the New York Giants, completing our season matchup. This is a 1 p.m. slate on November 17th. There's not really much to talk about because, as I said, this is the point in the season where we are the 2 worst teams or the 2 projected worst teams in the division. This is where that game might not necessarily be as competitive. But we do complete the season matchup with the Giants. And yeah, it's not really much to talk about with that game. Hopefully we get some revenge for this past season where the Giants swept us for one of their few wins, or 2 of their few wins. But yeah, moving on to week 12, on November 24th, we have a home game. We have a home game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, November the 24th. This can potentially be a Justin Fields versus Jaden Daniels matchup. But the Steeler fans, they travel. And with them being close to Thanksgiving, they don't want to travel too far away. And it's nothing like making that road trip down. I think that's I-95 if you're coming from Pittsburgh to DC. Week 12 against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, giving us 2 home games in a row. Now, I know this isn't likely, but it has been done before. But I'm giving us a 3rd home game. I'm giving us a 3rd home game in the row. And this one is another 8:20 game. But guess what? This one is going to be on Thanksgiving. On Thursday, November 28th, Thanksgiving Day. We'll be having a home matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles in the primetime slot on Sunday Night Football, which is on a Thursday, but it'll be in an NBC slot. The first 1 o'clock slot always goes to the Detroit Lions and their particular opponent. The 4 o'clock slate always goes to the Dallas Cowboys and their particular opponent. And I don't think that we're going to get Washington and Dallas for a second year in a row, but I do think that Washington will be playing on Thanksgiving Day. If you guys can remember the 2017 season, we played the New York Giants in this slot, in that late night slot, and I think we actually got the win in one of the more boring games that I can remember. But I don't think that this game will be boring. You got Jaden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts. You got the first divisional matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who is still a damn good roster. And a very marketable roster. And I think that the NFL wants to have, whatever you think about no matter what you think about the NFC East, as a cumulative, as a whole, we have the 4 biggest markets. And I'm not saying 1 through 4, but when you add them up, as a whole, we have the biggest markets amongst any division in the entire NFL. So that NFC East slot, I know TV marketers and, sponsors will love to see a Washington Philadelphia NFC East matchup on that Thursday late Thanksgiving night. So moving on to week 14, we get our second back-to-back divisional game pairings in the schedule, and this is actually our away game against the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll actually be playing this game on a Thursday as well. Looking back on the schedule the last couple of years, Dallas has always played on the Thursday following Thanksgiving because they always play on Thanksgiving, giving them a week of rest. But I think the NFL has done this to be fair as well. But they always pair them up with another team that has played on Thanksgiving as well, just to give them an equal amount of rest. So as last season, the Thursday after Thanksgiving, Dallas played the Seattle Seahawks. Dallas played on Thanksgiving, and the Seattle Seahawks also played the San Francisco 49ers on Thanksgiving as well. So I think the NFL would do that again and pair us up in Dallas at Jerry World. And this will be the second matchup against Dallas. And the reason that I did that is because both teams play on Thanksgiving. So this will be another primetime matchup. And I know we're not accustomed to this, but I'm giving us our fair share of primetime matchups. I think that is 4 primetime matchups so far, and that sounds about right for a number 2 pick. We didn't have a slew of primetime matchups with Robert Griffin, but I know we had, the late week 17 game against the Dallas Cowboys. Then we had the Thanksgiving spot, and we had the Monday Night Football spot. So we had a couple of national primetime games when we had Robert Griffin as the helm as a rookie, and I think we're going to be following that trend as well. So let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and put this kind of in a rapid style. So week 14, December 4th, like I said, the Thursday after Thanksgiving, in that 8:15 slot on Thursday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 15, we on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not much to say. You go to Florida, get some good weather in December. Baker Mayfield going against a potential, NFC contender for a playoff spot. So that can be a potentially, important game as we move later into the year. Moving into week 16, we have a home game against the Cleveland Browns, similar to the 2022 season where we played the Browns late in the season where we got that loss and y'all boy Paddleboat Ron did not know that we could get eliminated from the playoffs. I think that was actually in week 17, but we're going to be playing them in week 16 this year against Deshaun Watson. Week 17 will also have a home matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. This could potentially be a matchup between Michael Penix and Jaden Daniels. If Atlanta isn't necessarily competitive at this point in the season, with only one game to go at this point in the season, you might get an early look at Michael Penix Jr. So this can be a potential, Michael Penix versus Jaden Daniels matchup. Which would raise it on the marketability scale, on the watch rating, but it wouldn't boost it too much higher. That's why it is in the 1 p.m. window. Outside of that, the only trend that it necessarily bucks, it seems like we always play the Falcons in November. But with this, in my mock schedule, you would buck that trend. And last but not least, As always, thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Bleeding BnG podcast. But last but not least, week 18, I have us playing away. So we open up the season away and we end the season away. This one we head up to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia to close the season with a divisional matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles in the 425 slate. The reason that I push that back is because it might have a potential impact on some potential playoff slots, whether that be with the Philadelphia Eagles, whether that be with the Washington Commanders, or whether that be with both teams impacting other teams across the league. I think that there's potential for that. No, I'm not saying that we're going to be Super Bowl contenders, but I do think that there's a good chance that we can get this thing turned around rather quick, especially if Jaden Daniels is what I think that he can be. We close out the season against the Philadelphia Eagles in that 425 slot, but that one could potentially be flexed to that Sunday Night Football spot where it's the last game of the season, kind of like we were in the 2020 season because we had so much impact on other teams across the league. That'll do it for our 2024 schedule, mock schedule. Let me know what you think about our schedule. Let me know what you think about our games. Let me know what you think about the placement of our games. Let me know how you think we did. And like I said, if you guys want to drop your own schedule in the comments, please let me know. I would love to hear it. When do we need to start planning some of these trips? According to my mock schedule, we need to go ahead and start looking at New Orleans in September. Let me know if you're with me. I'm trying to hit Beale Street. No, that's Memphis. What am I talking about? I'm trying to get naughty in the French Quarter. Up there as I support my Washington Commanders as they play the New Orleans Saints. But as always, that'll do it for this episode of the Bleeding BnG podcast. If you're checking us out on audio-only platforms like Apple Podcasts or like Spotify, please be sure to leave a rating. Please be sure to leave a review. That's how we finesse these algorithms so that when you're looking for anything Washington Commanders, Bleeding BnG is that number one content hub that pops up on your search bar. As always, hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if you're not following us on social media, go ahead and hit us up on X at Bleeding BnG, BLEEDIN. BnG, or hit us up on Instagram at Bleeding BnG, BLEEDING BnG. We love to chop it up with you guys over there. On the road to 2,000 followers. Can't do it without you guys, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll check